there is a great hunger, a great yearning for public discussion of big questions that matter, including big ethical questions, questions of values. And I think the reason for this yearning is that there is, in the public discourse of most of our societies, a kind of emptiness, a hollowness. What I'm really trying to engage these students in is the lost art of democratic public discourse, reasoning together on the basis of respect about big questions that matter. In too much of our public life, what passes for political discourse these days is either narrow managerial talk, which inspires no one, or shouting matches, ideological food fights on the floors of Congress, shouting matches, often rude, sometimes vulgar on talk radio or cable television, where people shout past one another without listening to one another and without really engaging with the underlying principles, the moral and ethical convictions that all of us care about and bring to public life. This trend for market thinking and market reasoning to reach into every sphere of life also is unfolding with regard to large institutions. We have growing numbers, for example, of for-profit schools, for-profit prisons, for-profit hospitals. We've lived through a quiet revolution. We've drifted from having a market economy to becoming a market society. The difference is this: a market economy is a tool, a valuable and effective tool for organizing productive activity. Market economies have brought economic growth and rising prosperity and affluence to countries around the world. But a market society is different. A market society is a place where almost everything is up for sale. It's a way of life in which market thinking and market values begin to dominate almost every sphere of life, including personal relations, family life, community life, health, education, civic life, law, politics. And so the question I'd like to put to you today is whether we should worry about this, and if so, why? Should we worry about market values and market thinking governing more and more aspects of life? Let's suppose you're the president of a very selective private university. And let's suppose that you have an applicant who doesn't rank toward the top, who did just okay on the SAT and with his or her high school grades. But this applicant has affluent parents who come to you. You're the president, remember. The parents come to you and say, we realize that our child doesn't rank at the top, but we hope you will admit him or her, and by the way, we would love to make an $8 million donation. You need a new library, don't you? Or maybe a new swimming pool or a science lab. Now, you're the president of this university. What would you do? And let's see a show of hands. How many would go for it? Students not terrible, won't flunk out. All right, right over. Let's go here, and then we'll come back.
Okay, and I look at it from a different perspective. I'm the board of trustees of a private university. And
so you are in the trenches.
And the way that...
By the way, what's your name?
Chuck Sober.
Okay.
The way that I would look at it is, first of all, it's probably a tremendous benefit to the university. All universities have capital programs.
Right.
They have to be supported, and you can do it one of two ways. You can do it through donations from the alumni.
Right.
You can do it through gifts from other sources. So that would be number one. The other thing is most universities are mandated to get federal grant money, that they have to have a broad range of different student profiles.
Right.
It's not always accepting the person that has the highest SAT scores. There's a diversity requirement. And there's probably other people that will be admitted to the college that have lower academic standards than this individual. So,
all right, so if universities admit people not only on academic grounds, but for reasons of geographic or ethnic or racial or economic diversity, or because they're great middle linebackers,
that's correct.
then why not accept, along with the middle linebacker and the kid from Alaska, a kid who comes with an $8 million contribution?
That's why I said I would.
That's your argument. All right. In many school districts around the country, educators struggle with the problem of motivating kids to study hard, to apply themselves. Now, some kids come to school ready to learn, already motivated. Other kids not, especially kids from disadvantaged backgrounds. So with the help of some economists, some school districts have done an experiment using a market mechanism, a cash incentive, to motivate kids to study hard, to do well on standardized tests, to get good grades. They've tried this in New York, in Chicago, in Washington, D.C. $50 for an A, $35 for a B. In Dallas, Texas, they have a program that offers second graders $2 for each book they read. The goal is clear: to motivate kids to read more books, to study hard, to get good grades. Some people object. Some say, if it motivates these kids, if it gets them to read, maybe it is not for the highest reason, not for the love of learning. But maybe there's the hope that if we pay them now, some of them at least may begin to read for the wrong reason, for the lower reason, but fall in love with reading, in which case, when the money stops, they will continue to learn. Others worry that by teaching the wrong lesson, by, in effect, bribing the kids to read, getting the kids to read not for the highest reason, but for an instrumental reason, we crowd out, some would say even corrupt, the higher purpose of teaching and learning, which is to inculcate a love of learning and of reading. The question of markets is not mainly an economic question. It's really a question of how we want to live together. Do we want a society where everything is up for sale, or are there certain moral and civic goods that markets do not honor and money cannot buy?